The truth is, everyone lies, and anyone who tells you otherwise, well, they're lying to you. Most lies are harmless little white lies. For example, we lie to our friends. Sometimes you're running late and you don't want your friends to rethink you're hanging out, so you tell them you're much closer than you actually are. Then you get there, you can even pretend to look a little irritated, maybe throw in stupid trains are never on time, just for good measure. It's a tiny white lie, so what's the harm, right? Don't forget we lied to ourselves. According to our textbook, the great American philosopher William James pointed out that many of our greatest achievements, including, he thought, the act of falling in love, could never be attained if we could not lie to ourselves in the course of pursuing them. And maybe along the way we lied to other people too. But the truth is very important. We need to be able to trust one another, and it's particularly important that a client trusts a professional. Here is another example from our textbook. Must a doctor always tell the cold, hard truth to a patient who is dying? And yet, if the doctor lies, couldn't her patient complain that she was prevented from making certain important decisions because she didn't have access to the truth? Which would you prefer? Here's a couple of different scenarios. The truth if it meant you would die in a month by knowing it, or a lie if it meant you would live 3 months longer by believing it. So this little scenario sparks several questions. Is the case that lying is always wrong? Are some lies justifiable? Is the truth always a good thing? Or are some truths bad news and bad news that we could do without? Are some lies worse than others? When it comes down to it, most of us would consider ourselves to be honest, truthful people. But from a professional standpoint, we have to know that we are being truthful. And according to our text, that takes some serious work. Because the big question we have to ask ourselves is, am I being honest with myself? On the flip side, we want clients to be truthful with their professionals. Professionals could not be expected to make an expert decision without knowing all the facts. But are there some facts that a professional doesn't need to know? Is a client sometimes permitted to lie to his or her professional? And even more interestingly, could a client sometimes be morally required to lie to the professional who represented her interest? There's a German philosopher in our textbook. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. His first name is Friedrich. He argued that what most people do is lie to themselves first, and then they can lie to others with a clear conscience. So part of the struggle of truthfulness is avoiding self-deception. In the case that I will be assessing, it's in our textbook. It's case 4.3, and it's titled Flying or Lying in Business Class. It's very short, so I'll read it to you really quick. A few months ago, you graduated from business school and began working at National Ink in New York City. It was exciting for you and your spouse to live in New York, but also very expensive, especially since you still have huge loans to pay off from college. Your boss at National is sending you to a conference in Amsterdam. This is a great opportunity for you to display your talents. New hires are watched closely to see if they have the maturity and sophistication to work with foreign clients. At National, employees have the option of getting an advance for their plane ticket instead of paying for them and then being reimbursed later. National also has a policy of sending employees business class on any flight of 5 or more hours. You were surprised by the amount of the advance for the business class ticket and realized that you could use it to buy 2 coach tickets. Your spouse has not yet found a job in New York and is getting a little depressed. When your spouse hears about the trip and expresses an interest in going with you, you agree that it's a good idea. You cannot really afford a vacation, and it would be nice to stay in a good hotel and enjoy the sights in Amsterdam. Since the company is so large and you submit your receipts to the accounting division, your boss would never know if you bought 1 or 2 tickets. 2 coach tickets might even cost the company less money. So after reading this case, The one thing that stands out to me is when it says, since the company is so large, you submit your receipts to the accounting division. Your boss would never know if you bought 1 or 2 tickets. It's at this point in the scenario when we see the character's true moral sense of right and wrong, and we wonder, in a situation such as this, is it ever right to lie? Because this person would be saving the company money. According to Robert C. Solomon, the answer is very simple. It's no. He states that it's never right to lie, and even though it may never be right to tell a lie, it is often prudent and preferable, and if the way people behave is any indication at all of morals, popular as well. Ethics stands at the very core of our working lives and society as a whole, defining the public image of the business community and the way in which individual companies and people behave. What people do at work and how they think about their work determines their attitudes, their aspirations, affecting and even structuring their personal lives and habits. Lying may be wrong, but some lies are much more wrong than others. Truths may always be desirable, but the whole truth and nothing but the truth is just as likely to be a nightmare. Solomon believed that if you should lie, it should be a last resort and never your first option. One must always excuse a lie by showing that some greater evil would result from telling the truth, or most often simply by showing that there is a minimal harm done by lying and that the lie is not wholly inappropriate. So in this scenario, what a nightmare it could turn into. With being deceitful, you run the chance of getting caught, and the consequences could be termination. This person could lose their job. Under the circumstances of this case, it's morally wrong to purchase the 2 coach tickets over the business class ticket, because you would be doing so behind the company's back or behind your boss's back. This person has a few options instead of lying. They could talk to their boss and explain the situation. The boss may allow it. He may be in favor for it and allow him to purchase the 2 coach tickets with no problem at all. Or they could just go out and buy the ticket themselves. So concluding, honesty isn't just the best policy in business, it's in general the best policy, period.